Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. DB is here with me. I am Ravi, Lulla, and we're going to see if we can get my camera to work today. Oh, yeah. There we go. I've been having trouble with the old camera.
Not being a little defiant, are you?
No, I'm not doing it on purpose like you do.
I feel like...
I mean, I don't happen to have technological incidents almost every day like you do. I would never call it on purpose.
Great. I'm kicking myself out. How you like them apples? See you later.
You like apples? How you like these apples? Get back in the stream.
How about them apples? No, it's just like I'm dealing with children.
You dork.
Should I come back?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay.
I mean, there's alternatives that are worth it you could be listening to this morning, because that was truly horrifying. But we've got a good show for you.
Got a lot of quickies
Shane,
today.
TK says we got no audio.
Yeah, what's up with the audio? Oh, come on, Shane.
Can we make sure people can hear us?
Well, I will try.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
appreciate that. We'll tell TK we're working on it.
Oh,
yeah, we got a lot of quick hitters today.
What's a guy that goes to law school that's not? Is he like working?
Not yet. I think he probably has. I would guess he's either got an internship. I don't know. It depends on what year he is.
Man, he must got a sugar mama.
Hey, there's worse ways to go.
I don't ask a lot of questions, but man,
no judgment, man.
Zero judgment-free zone. Well, I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say judgment-free zone. About that, no judgment.
I have lots of thoughts that seem kind of judgy McJudge.
Oh, I judge constantly. But listen, if you find a rich lady that wants to take care of your lifestyle, like, go for it.
Go for it.
Like
one of the greatest one-liners ever uttered in a bad folk that had grown to folklorish movie.
What's that?
I'm gonna bust you up. Go for it. It was in Rocky 3, I believe. Clubber Lang.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that part. I'm pretty big into the Rocky movies. I don't remember that one.
Wait, you are?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I like them too, but
I'm a big Rocky guy. Yeah.
Me too.
I like the Creed movies. I'm like one of 4 people that likes Rocky Balboa, that weird 6th one that they did.
Is that the one where he was like
he's fighting Antonio Tarver?
Yeah.
It's actually
Mason Dixon?
Yeah, Mason the Line.
So that
was pretty good.
I like Tarver too. I liked him as a fighter.
Yeah. He was not in good shape following that movie. He lost a fight right after that because I don't think he took it real seriously after the movie.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that he was ultra talented.
He kind of drifted up in weight classes a little bit too, and that wasn't good for him.
Yep.
Probably needed to stay at that like light heavy.
Minded me a little bit, even orthodox versus unorthodox. A little bit of a guy I used to like in Vernon Forrest.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know Vernon Forrest.
That was like what I would call the golden age of boxing with those welterweights and junior welterweights.
They're like more recent.
So, like I would say,
because like the golden age of heavyweights
90s,
is like 60s, 70s,
the
right?
90s for
welterweights.
Yeah,
like Sugar Shane.
Yep.
Mosley.
Yep. Oscar.
Yeah.
And even the juniors. Yeah. It was.
Where did Mayweather start? He started lighter, but he ended up there.
Yeah, he won his first title at $130. He was little. He beat Chico Corrales.
Yeah,
which at the time was extraordinary, especially the way he did it, because Corrales was significantly bigger. He was like a 6'1 1/4.
That's Diego, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
a 6'1 1/4, 130 pounder. Just think about that for a second.
No, I know.
My man had some demons.
Oh yeah. Well, he passed
on his motorcycle.
One of the best fights.
He came into that fight on like the story goes he was only in camp about 3 weeks.
Oof. One of the best fights I've ever seen, and it's kind of a random one, is Jose Luis Castillo and Diego Corrales 3, I think it was.
Oh, where Corrales had the swollen eyeball and got knocked down.
Yeah, they came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the 7th round or something in there.
Monsters. Just left hook. Yeah,
it's one of the only times that like a boxing match has looked like they make them look in the movies in terms of just the action.
Yep.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I was a big. That's one of those What did you call them? We did these handful of months ago. Those weird man crush, those inexplainable kind of man crushes.
Oh,
guys, people you have a blind spot for.
Yeah.
That would be Chico Corrales.
Yeah,
that's why I know everything. Like,
it just goes.
It's just I don't know how we got on it, but I'm a huge Diego Corrales guy.
Go Google if you're not familiar. Castillo versus Corrales on YouTube.
They almost stopped that fight like 3 times because Corrales couldn't see.
Yeah. And then he kept going.
You felt like they were doing the tap thing on his neck when he says how many fingers?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's the best action I think I've ever seen in a boxing match ever.
Big.
Like I don't even. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, am I?
No.
It's probably the best action I've ever seen.
It was incredible. There were multiple times during that fight I was like, stop it.
Yes. And like both guys get knocked down. It was unbelievable.
And, Castillo was uber tough.
But, I don't know why we're talking about boxing except for boxing is awesome.
How did that? Oh, Tarver.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky, Tarver, That's okay. We'll, because I didn't know the line from Rocky 3. We've got a good show coming up for you here today.
A lot of little minis.
A lot of little shorties here as we're trying to.
A lot of little Shanes.
Sade. As we're trying to get you ready for the College World Series.
Dude, has my daughter been in my backpack?
Probably. You got a lot of pink markers there, bud.
What is going on?
A lot of multicolored. You got a purple. You got an orange in there.
Even the pen is. Somebody did this intentionally.
You think so?
Dude, does this look like me?
I don't know. Maybe you're highlighting stuff. Maybe you're out there being like, oh, I got to remember this.
This is incredible.
Maybe you're like printing off the rundowns you do everybody. You're like, oh, that's a good point, Ravi. Let's do that one.
This girl. I know it was her. Who does this?
Kyle Straub. He's part of the radio team for North Carolina Baseball. He'll join us at 7:43. Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7, joining us at 8. The one and only Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. We're maybe talking a little track with Kevin this week.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, it's got a national champion here in great old state of Nebraska.
Yes, we do.
We've got James Tibbs the third from Florida State.
It's funny. We spoke him into existence.
Yeah.
That's Shafe's guy.
They, Shane gave me the option yesterday, and it was Tibbs or Cam Smith, and I was like, give me Tibbs.
Yeah.
That dude.
Top 10 pick.
I know his counterpart at Florida, Caglione, gets all the run. Dude's not far behind.
Oh, I know.
He mashes. So
how do you think with the weather? How do you think this will play?
If it stays hot and I think we're going to get some dingers.
I hope not. I really do. I hope the game, even though pitching has not been good. I mean, here's the bullpen guy
all the dingers,
saying I want pitching, but
I want 98 LSU. Actually, they didn't win it that year. That was the USC Arizona game. Arizona State.
You want dingers?
Oh yeah, give me the dingers. Listen, the baseball I grew up with was mid-90s College World Series, mid to late 90s College World Series. I want dingers.
And people that kind of casually follow the sport or pretend to talk about it but don't really have good recollection or good memory. That you do realize, like 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about literally the golden age of arms.
Yeah, there's that can throw 98 yet to go just make them walk on.
Wow, you're gonna get Tim to call you back.
That's fine. He can be wrong all he wants, all day, every day. That's fine. I'm here. I know that the dingers aren't going to last forever, but while they're here, I'm going to enjoy them. I'm going to enjoy my James Tibbs. I'm going to enjoy my Caglione. Condon's gone. Bless his heart. Not dead, just out of the tournament.
I wonder which fan base do you think will be least represented?
Least represented?
Virginia?
I think Virginia cares about their baseball pretty good. I think they'll probably get here.
Is Charlottesville spoiled? I don't know. The bulk of the CWS crew will be locals.
Yeah. I mean, it always is. I mean, that's kind of not the dirty little secret, but that's what even a lot of the people that are wearing team colors are locals that just attach onto a team.
Oh, 100%.
That's just kind of how it's always been.
Shane, we need to talk to the folks from the Slump Buster baseball tournament that goes on about this time too. I'm gonna be eyeball deep in baseball too, because
is it Florida?
We got our
Florida might not travel.
Olsen Foundation golf tournament tomorrow.
I feel like Florida might not travel.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just get a vibe. A&M's gonna travel because they're annoying. I don't know about Florida and Kentucky are the ones I don't know. You would think Kentucky would because it's their first time, but maybe they also don't know the ropes since it's their first time.
Two whatever to not know any better.
Yeah, NC State will be here. Probably not the biggest, but they'll be here.
Texas A&M Florida should be pretty interesting.
It should be entertaining.
What is Tech? So I know Montgomery's a great player, but I mean people got to. Well, they don't have to, but I know folks in College Station probably aren't panicking because they didn't know that they were getting Montgomery until August. Mm-hmm. So they had plenty of guys ready to go.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think A&M will be okay, but again,
I think it's more of a psychological issue.
Again, another guy that's projected top 10 pick.
I think it's more of like a psychological issue than it is like an actual player's issue.
Those ones are hard to watch too.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I was kind of obscured, and then they were very reluctant to do the replays.
To show it, yeah.
So, I asked on Twitter, and I knew I was following Kendall Rogers at the time because I was watching a different game, and I was like, I looked away and I'm like, did they cast that thing? But then I looked at his Twitter like 3 minutes before that. Mm-hmm. I went to replies, and
not great.
They casted that thing.
Not great. Then we'll wrap up the show talking up with Jessica Brabec from the Pinnacle Bank Championship, as we're just a couple months away as that thing gets into full swing in August, and we will have a good time talking to our friends over at Pinnacle Bank Championship about that over the next couple months.
Big Indian Creek guys.
I do like Indian Creek.
I like the people. I haven't played there.
I don't know a bunch of. I haven't played there, but I've been to several weddings out there.
Yeah, you know what? I have been to a few there myself.
It's a popular wedding. It's a nice facility over there.
Before my buddy moved downtown, he used to live right across the street.
Yeah,
but he got an amazing place downtown.
Yeah, get like one of those condos.
So he got a little low key spot that never really came on the market. He used to cater for them, and
they kind of hooked him up.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's incredible.
That's the way to go. There is some other interesting stuff going on as well. I know we've got a lot of guests to get to, so I want to make sure we get to some of the other stuff here in the first couple segments. And it's one thing that we didn't get to really yesterday, mentioned it in passing, was, we were talking about quarterback recruitment. We were talking about the places that people get found, how guys can maybe game the system a little bit to get offers and things like that. But there's a guy that Nebraska seems to be looking at least, in Jalen Gramstad, who certainly did not game the system. He's if he makes it to
Nebraska,
if he makes it to Nebraska, he certainly is going to do it the hard way. He's the NAIA Player of the Year for Northwestern, not that Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa.
It's funny. He fit your measurables you threw out there on a humbug yesterday.
I
think you said 6'1", 180.
Well, yeah, I did.
And he's roughly a 6 foot 190 pounder.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of, well, first of all, I really hope he ends up at Nebraska. And that's just because I have a very soft spot in my heart for NAIA athletics. First of all, it's way better than people think it is. Mm-hmm. Like, the level of competition there is dramatically better than people think it is. And secondly, those are some of the places where it's D2, NAI, D3. And that's not to say that other guys don't love the sport, but you get zero of the frills there. If you're if you're like making it in one of those, or you're making it in like minor league baseball or wherever, you really love what you're doing. And I think that's kind of a perfect fit for what Nebraska needs out of this. Maybe not needs, but would want out of an extra quarterback in this class. They kind of want a guy that, I don't know what his career ambitions are, but, I would assume maybe he wants to be a coach someday. I think that's a fair guess based on kind of what we've projected as that 4 spot to be. But I think it would be an incredible story. Not that you would just do it for the story, but I think it'd be an incredible story if Gramstad ended up on this Nebraska roster.
Yeah, and I think for all intents, once you make the walk back to the weight room, kind of in the facility, which is what happened.
Yeah, you got a pretty good chance.
Yeah,
Chances are pretty good.
Yeah, you got chances that are pretty good.
Yeah.
And, Nebraska gets, but maybe it's inevitable. I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk as though we'll assume. Fudge. Is that the number of quarterbacks you want in that room? Because I kind of think it is.
I think that's right, yeah. You have your presumed starter. You have a backup with some experience. You have a young guy that you like. And then you've got an extra guy with like a super experienced kind of cerebral coach in the room, extra guy in Gramstad. That's kind of the perfect makeup of a room.
Yeah, and the thing about Gramstad is he's got one season plus a red shirt.
So he could play.
You could play in
4 this year.
Yeah, he could get the requisite number of redshirt games and still be there. And he gives you a little peace of mind because I don't really think they care, but they don't care, right? Because if you watch them and how they go about coaching those quarterbacks, you don't really know who's the guy and who isn't. In
terms of the reps they get,
just how they coach them.
Yeah, how they treat them.
Yeah, so
which is not. That's not always how it goes.
No, but that is if
you're going to be good.
If you're good enough,
yeah,
that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah,
and I think
that's how Stetson Bennett ends up starting at Georgia.
Well, I think quietly we'll be talking about Thomas here for the next couple of years because that's a certain level of security and comfort that he gives you because he is a legit, big time, proven
he is
quarterback coach,
NFL quality quarterback coach.
He's an elite quarterback coach.
What he does.
Yeah. So
he's not a guy that's like, I'm an offensive coordinator and I kind of coach up the quarterback. It's like, this is what he does.
Yeah.
And there's a huge value in that.
Oh, man, come on. In the greatest value, the one in which we don't talk about enough is when your OC is not preoccupied, when it's not Langsdorf or Beck, and no disrespect to OCs because a lot of those guys do handle quarterbacks, but it can be very, very time.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, lot of moving parts, and I think it really it just frees up OCs. And even on like the high school level, for a guy like, let's say Coach Secor, who's our offensive coordinator, doesn't always, he gets to work with other positions.
Yeah.
Like one day if he wants to take running backs with our running backs coach, he can do that. If he wants to go work tight ends and fullbacks, he can do that. If he wants to go with O-line, which he loves to do, he and Coach Williams have a great relationship. Like he can do that because we have a really good quarterbacks coach, and Coach Lovell does a really good job with those guys. There's a peace of mind where, especially if you want to do multiple things,
right? And I think there's a huge value that we don't always talk about in the fact that, especially if you're not getting ready-made guys. Which I don't know that even exists going from high school to college. I mean, like
you have your handful,
yeah. But they're super rare.
Yeah.
Even like I don't even know if Dylan's that right. I don't know
at the quarterback spot. You mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that quarterback specifically.
Okay.
So when you're talking about like you don't have a lot of guys
purple
at all that I would call ready-made at the quarterback spot going from high school to college.
Yeah.
I don't think that's hardly a thing that exists, even a little bit. Look at you just go through the history of it, right? But that position is almost too big to have other responsibilities now because of how important the quarterback positions become, right? Like you used to be able to do it where, like if you're throwing 20 times a game or less, 25 times a game or less, yeah, you could maybe get away with not having someone who is dedicated to quarterbacks. But in this era where most teams are throwing 30, 35 or more times a game now, that's the majority of your offense. Like, you guys probably could have gotten away without a quarterbacks coach because you weren't throwing the ball a ton. It's a different skill set.
Yeah, but you know what? We really couldn't because of the system and the ball handling that we ran.
Fair.
That was what made Coach Gill so important because he was – and just to buoy or kind of steady their emotional makeup, like their temperament.
Because it's kind of a high volatility offense.
Yeah.
That you guys were doing.
And it's a high volatility position.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
So maybe you guys were a bad example.
So remember when when Coach Rule uttered the famous, remember how candid he was about his coach's abilities? And he's like, listen, man, Sat Burn's high.
You don't always want that with
And you don't always want that with a quarterback's coach.
You kind of want steady Eddie, just like the steady hand.
So let's put him in a position where he can be
him.
Yeah, where he can play to his strengths.
And that's a successful formula.
But he's still going to call plays. And I was like, you know what? I trust you.
Yeah, that sounds great. That makes sense.
It makes complete sense. Because it's funny when he said that. I was like, man, that's pretty cool. Because I remember Coach can say anything to the media if that's not the first time
that the guy's heard it.
Yeah. And the one thing I was very, 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 very consistent with from the first time that I met Coach Sat, he hadn't been off the plane but 2 days when he came to Westside, was I said, you get the sense you better be extremely secure.
Mm-hmm.
You better be able to handle some tough love and a little criticism, and not everybody's built like that. And so those were the qualities that I was looking for in the quarterbacks if I was going to rally behind it, which is why I didn't put any quarterbacks that year. By the way, I told Shafe to repost that list, especially after Nation left. That Super Six from that year may be shot.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess.
But I did go back and look at my list, and I didn't put Sims in. I think I was one of the few that didn't put Sims in.
Yeah, almost never put Sims in.
And there was one other guy, but I know I was super high on Fields.
Yep, a lot of people were. Eric Gilbert made a lot of the lists.
I didn't put him in anything. Yeah. I don't listen. One thing you know about me, I don't mess with anybody that I think I'm not sure on if emotional maturity comes into play.
Yeah, if that's a question mark,
I don't care who it is. I don't.
Yeah.
They're infamously, I've left off a couple of guys that people think are going to be pretty good off my last couple of Super Six, and I won't apologize for it. You got to prove it. You don't handle rigor at the high school level. It's tough in college, baby.
I didn't have one a couple of years ago because apparently people didn't think I existed. But oh well, that's all right.
It's your buddy.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back with more. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live on the Pillar Exterior stage. DB, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are things?
I'm doing all right, and you seemed really upset about the multicolored markers.
It's kind of,
curious, a little anomaly.
Folks being funny, I guess.
Your kids just sticking stuff in your
got
back.
my one mechanical pencil left for any mental notes I need to make that aren't mental.
Yeah, it's no longer a mental note if you have to write it down.
Yep, that's the joke.
It's just a note at that point.
Yep. Want to remind myself I need to do some vector training, and that's it for my qualifications for coaching.
Some vector like airplane vectors?
No, like the guy off Despicable Me.
I haven't seen that because
of course it's the
kids.
Yeah. You can borrow one or two if you want.
No, I'm good.
Oh, they're great. They're fantastic.
When they're not beating your brains in pickleball.
I'll hang out with Caleb.
Yeah, I don't get to do that.
Oh, I met the Minion movies, the Despicable Me movies.
Yeah,
they're great.
I don't really watch cartoons.
My buddy, who by the way, Prep's got to put him on their payroll. He shouldn't have to pay tuition. They should get him for free. But anyway, my buddy's dropped his son off at team camp down in Lincoln the day before yesterday, and this guy I used to coach with for the youth group. Had a really good team, and he said that he saw him. He's like, yeah. He texted Caleb because he was catching punts, and it had to be early. I think he sent the text at like 8:30. I'm like, he doesn't tell me anything. But it's the funny thing about our relationship is I'm not going to ask either.
Yeah,
right. Because I don't. It's a very fine line for a parent that could figure out just about anything he wanted to know, but doesn't want to know. Want that to skew my thoughts.
Yeah, well, and you don't want to be,
and it's not our
overbearing.
No, either. It's not our relationship.
Yeah, and he's a super mature kid too. So if
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, that's how he comes off at least. I'm just saying, there's some parents that like you wouldn't have that confidence.
Yeah.
If their kid acted different.
I couldn't believe it. Last night just casually, Jay's like, oh, I talked to Caleb last night. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of days, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Guess who didn't? Again, that'd be me. Yeah. That's how we do it over there.
That's all right.
108th.
You got to do what you got to do. You got to get in where you fit in, right?
Which, by the way,
yeah,
if you can't tell by now, I'm poking holes at this whole philosophy thing about depth in the secondary. Mm-hmm. Part of it is I feel a little Ravi-ish because I was sick of hearing during recruiting that that
they're recruiting too many DBs
and he's playing the game and this, that, and the other. Man, I'm not gonna lie, like that. It was bugging me because I kind of felt like I had a good handle of the situation.
Well, and then people are like, oh, they're not going to have a spot for him.
Dude. Yeah. Which, unfortunately, but fortunately, that was the infamous hang-up phone call thing. But anyway, they keep trying to get veteran DBs and cornerbacks. Why do you think that would be? I thought we were good.
Seems like they may have some concerns about the depth.
I thought we were good.
Well, no, you didn't think we were good. I didn't think we were good. Just everybody else in the state until
I'm like,
everybody else in the state until we said it out loud said we were good.
Don't let the numbers fool you.
That's how it went down, though, right?
It's like
because we were doing our position previews. Yeah, and we get to secondary.
I said it from the jump,
and we go options, not answers. They had options, not answers. I think that's the first group we said it about. Was they've got options, they don't have answers. Guess what the narrative became statewide after we had that conversation?
Now, in full honesty here, I think a lot of it is because of how we feel about Coach Coop. Right? Like he's going to figure it out. Yes. Like he's pretty sensational.
He's one of the
and he's going to embrace that too.
He's one of the guys that you figure he's got bodies, he'll figure it out, right? Maybe one of the only guys that we feel that way about. Although I kind of feel that way about Knighton.
Yeah, me too.
Because he did it last year. His guys are more proven this year than they were last year.
So hopefully along those lines, because we were kind of like.
And then I always kind of forget about Dvorak because he's only got like two guys.
Listen, stud.
Oh, I've heard he's great, right?
Stud.
He's one of the guys that Rule brought up, right? When he was like, when either Garrett or Dvorak.
You know how sometimes you get caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
So we're.
That never happens to me.
I was whatever. We were taking a tour. We were just walking in downtown Lincoln.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be in packs, right? You have a couple of recruits. You got coaches. Man, I looked up, and it's just me and Coach Dvorak. We lost the whole rest of the group. And Zoe was with me. I was like, dang, this is the farmer's market. Man, I hope my little girl is cool.
Yeah.
Like, where is she? I hope her mom's got her. We just were in our own.
Yeah, kind of in your own world.
I love that dude. Like he's, if I was being super selfish, I would say, hey, with Christian, but you don't. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Just imagine that.
No, I know. I've been not in that situation, but I've been in situations where you have the opportunity to influence something the way you want it to go, and it's really hard in that situation to give good advice instead of.
Especially if you think so the only time I'll low-key interject is if I see a train wreck coming.
Yeah, if you're like, hey, you're not thinking about this right, you're like, hey, like I'll trust your thought process if your thought process is sound, but you start getting squirrely on me, like then I'm going to have to be like, hey, let's think about these things.
I remember the summer before the senior year, like I had to make 2 phone calls to schools. I sat in the hotel room because we were with Micah traveling for basketball, and I'm like, do I do this? I don't want him to go there.
Yeah.
But I did it, right? And then you have this conversation, and I didn't sleep for like 3 days. It's like,
well, that's not unusual.
This was.
I'm just kidding.
Bro, that's why I rev high. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
If you're going to figure – and I didn't know if I saw a train wreck. I saw probably more of a train wreck for me.
Sure, yeah.
Than anything else. And, I obviously was – I think they talked me off the ledge. But it's just when you watch some of these things unfold with high school kids and going to schools, you want to say something.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not my place.
Well, like
I had a fantastic talk. I talked to Nebraska's NSAA's director of football. I talked to Nate Newhouse yesterday for it got into the 40s, which is rare for me. Put my AirPod in. I went and sat on the deck. Again, I'm at home, like just places where I don't usually mess my own time, right? Yeah. And he's a big boxing fan too, so that helps. But just resolving all the world's problems, and we were just talking about young people and making decisions and stuff. It's like you want to interject, you can see it coming, but either sometimes people, it's not your place.
Sometimes people need to make the mistake.
Which is kind of what we arrived at last night, especially with a couple of issues going on in the state. And it's just like, you just kind of have to let this thing play out. Like, there's going to be some crash and burn.
Yeah.
And you want to come back and say, I told you so. But in order to appease people in the meantime, especially when you're in a servant position like that, like when you're catering to the charter member schools, and there's this thing called the Nebraska Department of Education that trumps some of what they do. Like, you just kind of have to let it play out.
Well, and there's something to be said for the ancillary benefits, like down the line, of letting it play out that way, right? Because, you obviously hopefully they learn from the situation, they learn how to process things better, they learn how to make better decisions after they crash and burn, if that's what happens, right? But the other thing is, especially when you're a parent, less so when you're an administrator, I would guess, but when you're a parent, and not that I would know, but I'm assuming here, just from other relationships, is if you don't allow a kid to explore the things they want to explore, whether it's going to school, a certain place, or whatever, right? Hey, I wanted to play this sport, they wouldn't let me.
Yep.
There is a resentment that builds up there.
Are you talking about me?
I'm talking about everybody.
Are you talking about me?
But like, if you had not let Caleb go to the visits or whatever, right?
Yeah, you don't have the problems that I had early in my college career without resentment.
Right. Like, if you had not let Caleb,
I'd have been mentally a lot more stable.
Well, that's
I didn't have
arguable. I'm just kidding.
But then again, I would have never met Dr. Stark. So.
But if you hadn't let Caleb go through the process, there'd be a resentment there from him because he would not know.
Yeah. Did you see Coach Rule retweet Christian Jones' tweet about Auburn? Yeah, he retweeted it.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible.
I love it. Be like, hey, look at these guys recruiting.
Explore your options.
You got to, right? Because then you never know if that's what you want or not.
Yeah.
That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. We'll be back from Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. DB here with me. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We are joined now by Kyle Straub. He does radio for North Carolina baseball. Kyle, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, Kyle, appreciate it.
We are doing great here, and I assume you're doing well also. Are you guys, you've landed in Omaha? Did I see that on your social media, right?
Yeah, 2:00 yesterday we took off from Chapel Hill and got ourselves into Omaha, give the kids a little bit of time to experience town and the spectacle that is the College World Series, but at the same time also knowing we got game 1 on Friday, let them get acquainted, get a little practice in, and be ready to go come Friday morning.
So I got to ask real quick. I saw on the social media video you guys landed in Omaha. Somebody said it smells like Omaha. What does Omaha smell like, Kyle?
I got a kick out of that one myself, to be honest. I would guess maybe a little bit of farm. I mean, some crops, some animals. I don't really know what Gavin was referring to when he said it smells like Omaha. Maybe it smells like baseball. I don't know.
There we go. Maybe got that fresh cut grass smell, right? Like you're getting.
Now, full disclosure, this is weird in little old Omaha, Nebraska, but without question, probably the biggest North Carolina baseball fan here, even as a Nebraska alum. So I've seen it all. The great teams from 06, 07, 08, even 09. When you're trying to continue the tradition of excellence, and a guy like Coach Fox goes away, and you're transitioning. What was kind of the patience level watching this program that had kind of experienced so much success that brings you back to this point in 2024 with another appearance, which had been since what, 2018?
2018 was the last time we were there, but to be honest, I don't know that there was really no much need for patience because there were 2 other super regionals that we hosted between 18 and this year. So we were right on the cusp of it a couple of times, one of which was actually under Coach Forbes. So, I mean, listen, in 4 years of him taking over for Coach Fox, I think it makes it easier when you have a guy who's a 21-year assistant under that head coach to take over. It's just a continuation of what was going on, just his spin. But in 4 years, he's been to the postseason all 4, 2 super regionals. He's won a regular season ACC title, a tournament ACC title, and now we're in Omaha. And that's in 4 years. So there really wasn't any need for patience. He took over, and he just kept that train right on moving.
Kyle, I'm glad you kind of brought that up because, we heard Tony Vitello from Tennessee, who you might end up playing in your second game, depending on how that Florida State-Tennessee game goes. But he talked about kind of redefining success in a way because, Tennessee's been a team that, they had a disappointing run a couple years ago, but it ended in a super regional. They had a great season. And is that how you or is that how the team tries and defines things for themselves? Obviously, the ultimate goal is always Omaha, right? But there's a lot of good things that they can accomplish along the way, as you kind of just laid out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think if you go back and ask those kids that lost to Arkansas a couple of years ago, do you consider that season a failure? They're not going to say, yeah. They won an ACC title and they got to super regionals. In that moment, sure, you're hurt, and that is not what you were trying to do. You come up short of your goal. But, I think it's one of those hindsight is 20/20 kind of things. In the moment, fan base going to be upset, players, coaches going to be upset, but ultimately you look back on it, and it is so hard to make a super regional, let alone to be able to host it, that, you can take it and say, you know what, it wasn't quite what we wanted, but, man, that was still one hell of a year.
Kyle, when you're taking a look at kind of what makes this team different, it seems like, listen, outsider looking in, but a huge fan. That pitching depth and your versatility in an age or a year right now where bullpens have been tough to come by, has that kind of been the difference for you guys, do you think?
100%. I mean, especially when you look at the fact that right before the season started, we lost Jake Knapp, who was going to be our Friday starter. And then a third of the way into the year, we lose our Friday starter who took over for him at Folger Boaz. So 2 arms that would have been in the bullpen are in the weekend rotation. Yet that bullpen is still 5-6 guys deep that you trust bringing in almost any situation. And that's a credit to Coach Gaines, Coach Howell, the pitching coach and associate head coach. That was the goal this offseason, was to go get depth, and not just depth, but quality depth. So you can bring in as many guys as you need. It's not a reliance on, hey, the starter's got to go 6 or 7. That's not baseball anymore. And I think they realized that and said, hey, we need to have a stable of arms. And that with a really balanced lineup is the reason where we are.
We're talking with Kyle Straub. He's on the radio call for North Carolina baseball. Yeah, I mean, you go through the rotation and the bullpen, and you see a lot of guys with kind of like medium level innings, right? You don't really seem to have a workhorse necessarily, but you got a lot of guys in that kind of 40 to 60 range of innings. Do you think that has particularly set North Carolina up well, not just for the regionals can be a grind with arms. Super regionals are a little bit easier, but the games can get on top of you in a hurry here in Omaha. Like, that's got to be something that gives you a little bit of peace of mind here in a field that is hyper competitive.
Yeah, especially if you lose that first game, you better have a whole lot of arms. Otherwise, you're not going to be in Omaha very long. So, I do think that absolutely helps them. And, you can kind of look at how the season went and how they used a lot of arms. Dalton Pence, Matthew Mateus, Matt Poston, all 3 of those guys during the regular season didn't really go much more than 2 innings at a time. But by the time you get to the postseason, the workload's not too big. You need somebody to shut things down, and they're going well. You're fine with Pence going 3 innings in another game and 2 in another and throwing 100 pitches over a weekend because he's not tired already. And you know that, hey, you know what? We've also got other guys that we can bring in if we waste him for a game to finish off the final 3 innings.
There's no way familiarity breeds contempt, but opening up with who you do and understanding what you do about strengths and weaknesses, How does that play into the matchup?
I think for the coaches, it gives them a little bit of ease because it's a team you've already scouted. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We've played Virginia already, so it's a team that they've gone and they've looked at. Now they'll go back and look because for both teams, I think a lot has changed since that matchup that we had almost 2 months ago, I think it was. But there's the familiarity, absolutely. And the coaching style is the biggest thing, is you understand how these teams and how these programs are run and what to expect from them. Where if you're playing I guess this year it's only a possibility of an SEC team that you don't play all the time, you may not have that familiarity there.
Kyle, we've talked about your pitching quite a bit here, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Vance Honeycutt at all in the season that he's he's a name that some people in Omaha, I'm sure, will be learning if they're not familiar with it already. He's kind of in this handful of group of super high-end players with, some power numbers that have started to pop back in college baseball over the last 2 or 3 years. What's it just been like watching him kind of just tear through this season the way he has?
The last 3 years have been spectacular, special. He is. I've not seen it, and I've heard Coach Forbes say this. He has not seen in his years of coaching the speed and power combination that Honeycutt brings. It just blows your mind. Super regionals, he hits a walk-off home run, comes back the next day, hits a lead-off home run, and then the very next at-bat, he bunts for a single, 3.5 seconds down the first baseline. Who can do that? That's like Barry Bonds when he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's insane. And people are absolutely going to be impressed by him. I think the thing that they're going to be most impressed by, and I'm so excited to see, is to watch him in the outfield. His ability to take hits away, take extra bases away, easily the best defensive player in the country outside of the catcher spot. And in that big outfield and in that ballpark that plays big, oh man, it's going to be a lot of fun watching him out there.
Listen, I love him. There's no question, but the guy kind of think gets overshadowed with some similar attributes, and to some degree you could just insert name, but I got to give you a sec to brag about Casey Cook too, because on other teams he'd be playing a different spot in the outfield, but with Honeycutt you have some options. Like Cook's no slouch either, back patrolling that the green either.
I'm glad you brought Casey up because I feel like he has really been under the radar and hasn't got a lot of the publicity that he deserves. The last time we were in Omaha was 2018, and we had Michael Bush on the team, who is now with the Chicago Cubs. And when you watch Casey Cook play, especially at the plate, you get a lot of those Michael Bush feels. Clutch hitter, great bat-to-ball contact. He's added a lot of muscle, which has given him power this year. And then that versatility, the ability to just say, hey, I'm okay playing wherever you need me, and I'm going to do a good job of it. And then on the other side, too, Anthony D'Onofrio over in right field, he's a center fielder on any other team. It just happens to be that Vance Honeycutt is our center fielder.
That's Kyle Straub. He's on the radio call for North Carolina baseball. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. And we look forward to watching you guys play here in Omaha.
I appreciate it, you guys, and hopefully we'll be there for about 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears. Best wishes.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
That's Kyle Straub. He's on the UNC radio baseball radio team. Good stuff there. Look at you just being a homer. It's all right. I'll get to be
Casey Cook's a stud. That's kind of my dude.
Well, we didn't even get to Parks Harbor, who's not bad either. We will we will get to me being a homer later when we talk to Tibbs from Florida State. But coming up next, we've got Brad Christopherson, Husker 24/7. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And we are joined now by the one and only Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. What's up, BC?
Oh, not a lot. How are you guys?
Good, BC. How are things?
Pretty good. I just started like a 10-week kickboxing workout program, so you're going to hardly recognize me by July or August. My muscles are hurting today.
You going to look like Jake Gyllenhaal in Southpaw? You getting all shredded up?
It's going to be something, I feel. Yeah.
BC, it's funny. You'd be one of those guys that's as chill as the day is long. And Somebody would kind of say something to you slick in the press box, and all of a sudden they get a roundhouse, and you'd be the guy to you'd be the guy to apologize and help him up. He's like, hey, you know what?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, Sam.
I'm sorry
I didn't mean to do that. Or are you okay? And I could totally see it, man. The consummate nice guy.
Well, at this moment, it takes quite a while for my roundhouse to develop. It takes a couple seconds for me to turn my body and really plant. So you do have time probably to derail my move at this moment, but we'll see how it goes over the next 5 to 6 weeks at least.
BC, you're probably not going to answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I think it's funny. If there was anybody in the press box that you would want a roundhouse kick, who would it be?
You're right. You're right. You answered your own question. I'm not going to answer that.
Just say Shafe. It's okay.
No, it's not Shafe. There's probably a person or two. Yeah, but I'm not going to say it.
God bless you, BC.
All right, moving right along. Did you think on June 12th we would be talking about an NAIA quarterback possibly joining Nebraska's room?
Well, that would have been a very specific prediction that I would have got that.
What about June 13th? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, that was here's what I like about the story. Whatever happens with it is I had a chance to talk with him Monday, Graham's dad, and I like the fact that he had that conversation with family, and it was actually he was talking with his grandpa like a week or two ago. And it was just one of those talks you can have with the people who are closest to you where it's like, put yourself out there, go chase something. And so whatever happened, obviously Nebraska has to make the right decisions for their roster on who they offer to join the program and all that. I'm not trying to force anything. But I just like the personal story because I think we've all been there in certain situations where you get that advice or you get that extra nudge from someone close to you and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to attack this. He feels like he accomplished, which he has, most of what he can at that level. And he feels like he could contribute at least in that room in some way. He's got a winning mindset and threw for a lot of touchdowns. Obviously people who understand the tiered system of college football know that NAIA is a few steps down. So you got to process that. But certainly when you're talking about if you could add a fifth quarterback or something to the equation, you're thinking about a guy who's, I think, really got the mental component at a high level and has kind of proven that. And he would seem to fit the bill in that category. So we'll see where it goes. But I like that he just said, I'm going for this, kind of spontaneous. And it was a fun camp story for sure.
BC, it's interesting. Now, one's 24 and one's 25, but you got Star, you've got Duty Arno, that are a couple of DBs that have been offered by Nebraska. Well, wait, is Star's 25, isn't he? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's 25. So both 25s at the cornerback spot. Both were previously committed. We'll see. Star said Nebraska's offer kind of came out of nowhere. When you're looking at, are you intrigued, interested, concerned, just the price of doing business when you look at the amount of offers and the time of these offers for defensive back spots?
I guess is this to the narrative of that they need to, that you got to bulk up that secondary even a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There's some connection there, but I've thought that for a while. I left spring, and I think on this show I said the one area in the defense I'm kind of wondering about is I like the 3 or 4 or 5. There's 3 or 4 or 5 main guys about, but you don't quite know how some of that young depth is going to rise up and where they're at for sure. I think they got a lot of talent there, but there's room for some new guys who are just getting here even, guys in this next recruiting class over the next 2 years to carve out space. So I don't think it's a position room where if you're a recruit looking in at it, yeah, there's a lot of bodies, but I don't think you would say, I can't make something happen there. You would look at it and say, okay, they've got like 3, 4, 5 guys that are kind of established, but they're going to need more than that. And it might as well be me. So it does compute to sort of how I've seen it. And I know it's how you've seen it, because I think it was a show or two ago when I was on with you. We were talking about that very thing. It was, you know, that I like the top line a lot. Like, I love, like, you know, what Tommy Hill can be with his consistency and stuff. Obviously Giff is like the dude who sort of runs things back there, I feel like, and Marquise and Deshaun. But then there's the other side. You don't know what Bly Hill's injury situation, how long that will take. Even if he is back, he hasn't really played at this level before. Jeremiah Charles, another guy who has all the talent in the world, we know that, but hasn't played at this level. So it is very much a development position still in some spots, where a recruit, I think, would look at it and say, yeah, that could be appealing to me. I could go in there and compete right away. So it did not surprise me. That was a long answer to get to that.
How much are we kind of, I'd say kind of at peace, just because it seems to be that's the way that Coop likes it. Highly competitive.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a pee or get off the pot kind of thing. Like, he seems to have a really, really good grasp of at least knowing what ingredients he wants to start to cook. And if it doesn't turn over, he'll just start over again with another meal.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, and you just always got to keep guys on their toes a little bit.
And that's the way he loves it.
Yep, that next crop of guys. Any recruit out there needs to understand that you're a 25 or 26 guy now. You're going to sort of feel like you're the flavor for a bit. There's going to be a time when you get in the program and then everybody's going to be writing about some other high school junior, that is going to, that could join the program, and he just tested this way and that way. And you've just got to find those guys who have the mindset, like, I understand that's the way it is. I like that. I'll bring in another guy. I'll beat him out too. And, if you can find yourself, I don't know how many you need back there that are like in that level, but I think you need like 10 or so, like that you just feel like they could fit in this rotation right now. And then you've got some guys who are on the cusp of being there, and they might very well be able to accomplish that.
That's a great, say that again, BC, 10 guys, and then another handful that are on the cusp, right? I hear that right?
Yeah. Yes, I did. And we were just talking about that on our pod the other day about like with the defensive line as an example of that. It's like finding that rotation where guys understand. It's maybe a little bit different with the DBs, but like some defensive linemen where maybe their role for that first year is you try to work to like 6 to 8 snaps, like you're that guy who has like 6 to 8 snaps. Then there's that guy who sometimes that 15 to 20 snap. And then you make that move like Nash Hutmaker made, last year. If we were talking about him 12 months ago, he was like on the cusp fringe type defensive lineman. And we forgot about that a month into the season and like how solid he was. But my point being, it's sort of on the defensive line, got that wheel spinning, right? Where it's like, okay, they're now they have these guys who, are showing like what it can be like when you work at it for 3-4 years and where you can get. But you also need those guys who are developing in that first or second year where maybe it's not quite their time yet, but they're like on the 2 deep or on the edge of it, and they can see it. They can find a role here or there, and they can see where it's going to lead, and they trust in the coaching staff that if they keep going, they can be like this other guy in front of them who did the same thing they did. So
yep.
I think that's what you're trying to do in every room.
You know what? 100% right. Because whether you're Malachi Coleman or you're Lloyd or you're Doss or, a handful of weeks ago, I'd have said the same thing about Ethan Nation. Like when you're a young guy and you get a little bit of a taste early, the key is to build upon it from the next year, because this staff has proven that they'll continue to recruit. It's almost like, you have to be mature enough to hear what I'm saying. Not you, but the context of this conversation. I almost felt like, when you go from like a Ken Clark to a Leotis Flowers to Derek Brown and Calvin Jones to, the next group, and then there's LP, then there's Amon, then there's Dean, where you're looking to see what's happening the next year, but you have to get to a point where you're motivated by it and not fearful of it, right? Like you can't be the person that is looking behind your shoulder. You just got to be the best version of yourself and trust that you got to really buy into that next man up, because it doesn't seem that they're going to hold off on going to get fellas.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not just a coaching mindset. The players have to buy into that too.
Yeah. I mean, it helps though a ton when you do have those examples in your very room in front of you where the coach can say, I mean, look at this guy. He was you like 1 or 2 years ago. Just keep going with the process. So you're going to have to bust your butt, no doubt about it. There's no guarantees, but this is what can happen. And I think a lot of guys are believing that because the evidence would be how few players from Nebraska went in the portal, really. And I know, like the fact that when Ethan Nation goes in the portal or is not on the roster anymore, I should say, it's sort of like, oh, what's that? Like that everywhere else, that's just been like common for the last 2 months, like guys coming and going and all this stuff. And around here, it was like, oh, we haven't been used to that in a little bit. And so I think that speaks well probably to even the younger guys who maybe the first year they were behind the scenes and they're not out front yet. They're still at least believing, in the staff and like, okay, if I put in the work, I can get there. And there's evidence that that's true with this guy and that guy, and I can be that guy too.
We're talking to Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, it's funny as we talk about this secondary conversation because, DB and I were, I think maybe skeptical is too strong of a word, but we had some concerns about kind of the depth in the secondary there. But then I kind of remember back to what the situation was last year when we didn't trust any of these guys. We're like, what do you mean Deshaun Singleton's going to be one of the, or what are we going to,
Tommy Hill?
Why are we doing, why is Tommy Hill out there all the time? Well, like pick a guy, right? Or can Isaac Gifford really play safety, or is he a tweener? What are we going to do with him? And so it is kind of funny at the same time where it's like, yeah, there is concerns about the depth. But last year, there were also concerns about the guys that were like, these are now the guys that I trust implicitly.
Yeah, that's a total Coop thing.
Yep. And the top line's pretty good. I mean, I was thinking about this, like, I mean, you've heard Cooper on Gifford. I mean, he thinks is one of the best players in the country.
And Coop is stingy with compliments.
Yeah.
They're just hard to come by.
Like I was flipping through like one of the summer magazines the other day, and there wasn't really a mention of Giff, like in the like all Big Ten stuff, 3 teams deep, and I'm thinking like, man, I feel like he belongs on there somewhere. And then Tommy Hill, like I know people say, okay, I just want to see it consistent because there has been a little bit of a roller coaster with him at times. But last November, you felt like maybe that had leveled off, and I think people are feeling really strong if he can carry that momentum forward. And like we had a list at 24/7. I had nothing to do with it, but one of our national guys had him on the list of 10 guys who could really be breakout performers. So there, and then Marquise, I think, is one of the smartest guys they've got over there. He just picks stuff up fast. And obviously we know Deshaun, if he's fully healthy, I think he's the next level guy. So you've got a nice starting base is what I'm getting at with 4 to 5 names. And now it's just getting the group that's a little below them right now and still figuring things out to come up. And maybe you find that one young special talent too. That has happened here before in other places where there's a freshman or sophomore cornerback who suddenly is out there and he's pretty darn good and he's salty. And obviously I left off Hartzog, but I mean, Malcolm Hartzog's like a key piece in all of this because he can do a lot of different things. So they do have to keep bulking it up, and you always keep guys on their toes, but they also, at least at the very top end, I think they have a good starting point, and now you just want to have that depth sort of established.
I have to keep myself from just unabashedly and unsolicitedly supporting Malcolm Hartzog. He's just a guy, you know how I get with some of my guys that just get a spot in the old heart. Hartzog's definitely one of those guys, man. Doesn't say much. Did what they asked of him in the offseason. He looks fantastic. I just, as long as he's healthy and and comfortable with a position group. I think he's just going to be a key cog. I feel like you and I always talk about him, but even in this conversation, we almost forgot to bring him up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's just kind of weird the position he holds with Nebraska's fan base. But I don't know. He's just one of those guys, BC. I'm hoping just has an incredible year because I think he's a super person.
He was one of the best talents to come out of the state of Mississippi. Great recruiting story. Everybody down there knew that he was like just one of those like football players. He's not to this level, so I don't want people to misunderstand this. But whenever I saw him or heard about him, I thought of like old Antoine Winfield. I thought of like Antoine Winfield Sr., like just like a guy who's a little undersized, but you just like, man, that guy is just such a player and just likes to hit and like be involved in everything. And he's got those sort of traits to me where he's just like a guy who, put him wherever, he's going to get something done as a football player. And so, yeah, I think he could be poised to have a nice jump this season. You heard Cooper in the spring, he thought maybe, Malcolm had to wear a lot of different hats and was sort of bouncing around last year. And maybe that caused some challenges at times. But you think back to his freshman year, I mean, he was where the ball was a whole lot. It just found him. He was magnet for it. And he was always in pretty good position, even on a couple plays where they got him. I mean, he was right there. So he's definitely a guy you feel good about going into camp with.
BC, is there another position group on the team that you view kind of the same way as you do the defensive backs, where you're like, hey, I like this handful of guys kind of at the front, got a lot of question marks after that?
I would say, O-line is going to seem like a strange answer, but I guess it's because I feel like there's like 5 or 6 that I know all about. And then it's like, okay, I like the names sort of, and I hear the names a lot, but I don't know quite what's in that cupboard yet. And it could be really good. Like, I think it can be. But I look at O-line, again, I'll go back to the D-line. I thought O-line made progress last year. I think the step that they could really make this year is making me feel more like the D-line did last year, where I just like, I honestly, a year ago at this time, I was kind of skeptical about what the defensive line was going to be like, and that they would have the depth that I feel like they've started to develop there. I think the O-line is trending that way, but sort of like the DBs, it's a group where I feel pretty good about some of the guys on the top line. And now it's like, okay, I really want to see like even some of those guys who are on the top line, like Justin Evans, like I want to see what he does, like how he can, where he can take his game this fall. And then you've got some of those guys from the last recruiting class who maybe we start to see sprinkled into more game reps, you're like Sam Sledge type guys. So I'm curious, like if we do get more of a taste of some of those 7, 8, 9, 10 guys in that room and what that looks like at times this season. But I feel good about where Ryla's got him going. I just, it's just like, okay, give us a little more confirmation with the depth and stuff this year. And I think they can do it. Let's just see if they can.
Can I make an argument for you on a group that I actually really like, but can I make an argument for the wide receivers? You've got Jamal Banks, who's got production at a different school. You've got Nair, who you're hoping bounces back from injury, but hasn't really produced in 2 years. You've got a couple of freshmen that produced some last year, but you're really hoping for a big jump. I mean, I really like that group and think it might end up being one of the best position groups on the team. But when you really dig into it, there's a lot of question marks there.
How about how much we talk about this group and we don't even bring up Malachi Coleman?
Yeah, well, I mean that's what I said.
Do you know what I mean?
Freshmen.
It's like
I'm talking Coleman and Lloyd basically,
but I do feel the level of excitement for this group is really, really high.
It definitely is. I almost said wide receiver to the answer, but I'm bullish on that group. But
so
I love McGuire too. So again, I'm cheering for that group like crazy. He's amazing.
But like, if you wanted to look at it a certain way, you certainly could.
No, your point's well taken, Ravi. It's that it looks really good on paper, but then it's like, okay, I just want to see that step now from like, I know like what Malachi Coleman can do in my head. Like, I know that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see it. Let's see it from Jalen. Ja'Cory, I think we got a taste of that in the spring. I think some of the things that honestly that have influenced me to really like believing in that group too is some of the things not talked about as much. It's like when I see Bonner come out there with the one at the start of the spring game, with Banks and Nair and you're throwing some short screen type stuff and you got Bonner out there like as one of your dudes blocking, and I just like sort of how they're stacked size wise too. I mean, they've got sort of all flavors, and they've got some guys like Malachi and Bonner who I think can be really physical on the perimeter as blockers, and we won't talk as much about that, but I think it's going to be just instrumental to getting that short, passing game sort of rolling. So that's sort of why I've kind of come around on that group. We've been there before with the receivers, though. I always say this. It's been it feels like an 8 to 10 year adventure of trying to find that room where you feel like, okay, they got like 8 or 9 guys you really believe in. So I'm hoping this is the year we're watching a game like in early November. The weather's not that good. And you're not looking at Nebraska's receiver crew and thinking they've only got like 2 or 3 options I really believe in here, because I feel like that's been the past. So hopefully the past is that's where it is.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 BC. We appreciate your time as always. Great stuff. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, B.
Reminder real quick here about the Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can see what events are coming up. You can also see what projects are being funded by the Team Jack Foundation. You can get all the information you need there at teamjackfoundation.org. I don't know if you can get the information on what DB is doing over here right now, but
losing my mind.
We'll come back with Kevin Sjuts and see if we can figure it out. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior Stage. And we're joined now by Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, what's going on, man?
Not much. I'll be honest with you guys. I really wish I was on a flight to Baltimore right now. Can't wait for the Orioles Braves today.
Oh, yeah. With
Schwelly and Povich.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
You didn't send you out there for that? Come on, man.
I wish, the short notice. It's crazy, one, that those two teams are lining up, and those are the two pitchers that are going to be against each other, especially after just getting called up. But, no one really knew that was the scheduled matchup until everybody knew about it yesterday. But I would say probably Monday late afternoon is when those pitching matchups were set. So it's kind of, if you're looking at it from an MLB pitching rotation thing, it was kind of short notice.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is Schwelly's third start already, and Povich's second. I felt like Povich was it wasn't some bad luck. I thought he maybe had earned better. He couldn't find the zone early, but I don't know, man. We got some good stories brewing with like Pro Big Red. I'm vibing with you there, Kevin.
And then I don't think it's going to be too long before you're starting to hear that, Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson are getting close to getting called up as well. I don't know what the timeline on that is going to be. But right now, what are there, 5, maybe 6 guys from Nebraska currently?
Yeah,
in
Jake
the
Meyer. Yep.
Waldron.
And
Waldron just
Aaron
got a
Bummer.
start. Yep.
The coolest thing was, the first game for Schwellenbach in the major leagues, his first start, he was replaced by Aaron Bummer. A Nebraska pitcher came in for a Nebraska pitcher.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that can't have happened a lot in the history of Major League Baseball, which is pretty cool. Something else that has not happened a lot, we saw Darius Luff accomplish over the weekend as well, getting that NCAA national championship in the 110-meter hurdles. I know you had a chance to talk to him a couple days ago, Kevin. Just what was your conversation with him like? He he dropped a couple of nuggets in there that I was kind of.
Ravi was so hooked. He was sending me the audio a couple of days ago. He's like, "You got to watch this with Sjuts," and I was like, "Okay, I'm all in."
Well, Darius, for one, like he's such an awesome guy, and I've known Darius for several years, going back to when he was a really good football player at Lincoln High. Everybody thinks of him as this All-American track athlete, which deservedly so, because he's one of the greatest tracksters out of Lincoln in history. But he was on that really awesome Lincoln High football team in 2018-2019, city champs, undefeated regular season. And I just couldn't wait to talk to him just to tell him congratulations, to be completely honest. Not to be a fanboy here, but I was just so happy for him. But my takeaways from the interview, one, is that he knew the restart. The race that counted was the second one. The first one, there was some movement. Darius doesn't even know where it was.
I don't think I didn't either. I watched that thing in slow-mo 12 times, Kevin.
I think it was like lane 1 or 2.
I get it, but I was like, oh, that is dicey.
Yeah, he was one of the last ones out of the blocks on the first gun. And, so thankful that, that's my big takeaway from Darius's interview is that, he didn't know about his chances if the first one would have stood. The second one gave him a new life. He took a deep breath, and I think that helped him reset everything. And he told me that he had a really good feeling he could win it because of where he was about halfway through the race. He's a good closer in those last 5 hurdles. He had a sense of where he was in terms of everybody else, and he knew he could do it. Won it by 100th of a second, and that's awesome. And the other thing that was, Nebraska has just a great photo of him with his arms in the air the moment that he realized he won. But the TV broadcast cut to his father up in the stands. And man, seeing him there, like, can you imagine? Because that's been his, that's been his number one from the very beginning. Yeah. The guy that has trained him, his dad, Scotty, and he's been with him through everything in this process. So as much as the accomplishment goes to Darius, Pop's got to be feeling really good about the championship as well.
Yeah, his uncle is my principal over at Westside, Miss Dr. Dostal, and I mean, you talk about a fanboy. He had the whole admin crew tuned in for Friday night. The funniest thing, and I follow high school track and field close, and he still got the best electronic time in the state's history coming out of Lincoln High in 2019. But do you know who first told me about D-Luff? The very first person that I ever heard bring Luff up was Coach Haycock at Iowa State in 19. I bet you he still follows him on Twitter. The football prowess was what first got the attention when Coach Haycock brought him up to me in 19, which was, obviously, you can do the math, 5 years ago. I like the fact you brought up the football thing, too.
Yeah, that team, that's one of my favorite teams I've ever covered, high school-wise, in the city of Lincoln.
That was Case and those guys, right?
Oh, it was Cedric Case, Zion Perry, Isaiah Alford.
They could run.
Oh, my. I'll be honest. On Friday nights, us guys in the 1011 sports office, we would fight over who would go watch Lincoln High. One, because they were so entertaining. Two, because you could be there in and out 10 minutes, not joking, and have at least 5 really good highlights. So it was easy work. They dove before us, and it was it was just so fun. And my last story here about Darius's run on Friday was my youngest son had a baseball game right outside of Lincoln, and that's when we got the thunderstorms that rolled in, right? Mm-hmm. So they got chased off of the field, game canceled. We hustled home because I knew Darius was running, and I wanted to watch it, and I didn't think I was going to be able to. We get home. I thought it was on ESPN Plus, so I'm logged out. I'm trying to log in, and like I'm up against the clock here. He's running at 8:42, and I'm scrambling, and I'm getting upset because I don't know if I'm gonna. It happened so fast. I'm afraid I'm gonna miss it. And then my daughter goes, "Dad, just try ESPN." Of course, yeah, it's on the main network. So we click it on, and they're in the blocks ready to run. I almost missed it, but it timed out perfectly. And I mean, like my adrenaline was pumping just trying to get it, on my TV in time. And then, boom, he wins it. I was yelling and screaming in my living room, and it was awesome. I'm just so happy for him. And I mean, he also said in the interview too that he's had some athletes across the state tell him over Instagram or other messaging, all that stuff, saying that they hurdle because of him.
Mm-hmm.
That's his legacy right there, guys.
And he picked such a tough sport. I mean, you have to be so powerful and so fast. I like the fact you brought up his closing speed as a finisher, because you could just tell he's a strong runner. He doesn't look slight at all out there.
No, you're right. I mean, if you walk by him on the street, you wouldn't think, man, that is a track star.
Yeah, he looks like a regular guy, doesn't he?
He does, but his technique is so incredible. And, you know, you're right, DB, hurdling. I mean, how? It's got to be one of the most challenging things that you could possibly do on the track, and he makes it look so easy. And that's why I say, like, God, his dad deserves so much of this credit, because the technique part of it and training somebody to do that so effortlessly, I mean, that's the tandem right there.
Well, you kind of got to love the, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, too. He dropped in there. Well, I had one of the best times in the country coming out of high school and didn't have a whole lot of offers.
Yeah, that record's going to have a hard time coming down. I hate to say never, because never's a long time, but man, he not only was the time electric, he was electric.
Yeah, he's as humble as they come, but he did drop to me, like, off the record. He was like, I hope that record stays for a while. Because he knows every year there are records that are being broken. Even look at this last high school track and field season in Nebraska. I forget what the total number was, but at one time, I think going into the state meet for state records, it was like 20 plus had gone down in this one spring. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, definitely on the uptick for high school excellence. The state is, I mean, we may have been slow Midwesterners to catch up with the edges of the U.S., but man, it is a lot of sports are on the uptick.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, guys.
Appreciate it, Kevin. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, be well. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Kevin.
That's Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. Want to remind you to get out to HuskerFanTravel.com so you can be part of Nebraska Alumni Association's travel package to USC in November. You're going to take a little, winter trip out to someplace warm and sunny, maybe catch a little Nebraska football while you're at it. You got tailgate parties, transportation, downtown LA hotel, all these options available for you for the trip, provided by Nebraska Alumni Association. All these different packages you can find at HuskerFanTravel.com. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we are joined now by James Tibbs. He's an outfielder for the Florida State Seminoles. They will kick off their College World Series run here against Tennessee. James, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm in the broadcasting business, so I'm going to get your preference here. Do you prefer the third, or is James Tibbs? Is that okay? Like, do you have a preference? I want to be correct here.
Yeah, I don't care. It was more about me. I wanted to represent my family.
Oh, my
dad,
man.
My grandfather mean a lot to me, and so when Coach Jarrett said he was bringing back the names on the jerseys, that was the first question I asked, and so he allowed me to do it. And it's been special for us. It's been special for them, and it means a lot to me to represent, not only this university, but also the two men that have molded me to this day. So it means a lot for sure.
All right, I'm going to let my partner fanboy here for a second, because he's the diehard FSU fan of the bunch. But we've talked to Coach Jarrett before. He sings your praises in terms of not just a great baseball player, but being like a quality person. And already in like the first 80 seconds of the answer, it's like, oh, like he's a real one, right? I get it. The all conference, a super smart guy too, but man, like the family thing, you just don't come by that naturally.
Yeah. I mean, family is everything. They are, I firmly believe that your foundation is what helps create who you are and who you're impacted by. And so, I grew up A, loving the Lord, and B, loving my family, and that's a huge impact on my life. So I wouldn't be here where I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for them and for them sharing A, the Lord with me, but B, just how to be a human being. And I'm so thankful for that.
I might have to change my allegiance.
I was going to say, I think you might have just converted DB to being a Florida State fan like me. It's funny you talk about, some of the things you love growing up. Randomly, I loved Florida State growing up. I grew up in Nebraska country, obviously Nebraska football fan, but I saw Florida State up here a ton at the College World Series when I was a kid and became a huge fan of the program. So it's super exciting for me to see you guys make your way back, especially considering there'd been a couple down years coming into this one. Kind of talk about that progression. I know your third year in the program, going from where you guys were to having a pretty disappointing year last year where people thought you were maybe going to be in this spot last year to a year 2 under Coach Jarrett. All of a sudden things are popping.
Yeah, well, I think it's a testament to Coach and our staff and their ability just to stick with their guns and go get the guys that they felt like were necessary to help us compete. I'm a little biased, but I think Florida State being good at baseball is good for college baseball.
Amen, brother.
100%.
Yeah, and so I think that, a lot of people, some people might not like Florida State, but we always, are competitive. We're always a good team. And man, we have a great group of guys this year up and down the roster. We get fiery, but it could not be a better group of human beings. And to be at the field every day with these guys, it makes sense why we've done well, because we are just a tight knit group. We all love each other. We all cheer for each other. We're all rooting for each other. And the competitiveness from day one was something that I've never seen in a team. It's just so much fire and so much, will to win. And so, when I walked into day one this year, we just knew it was going to be different. And we saw that throughout the fall. We saw it throughout the spring, and then it translated to the season really well. And so, it's been amazing. Like, not being in the College World Series since 2019, not hosting a regional since 2018. I think 2017 was the last time we hosted a super regional. Those things matter to this program. 24 appearances in Omaha now, and I think it's 18 out of 24 super regional appearances. I mean, that's unbelievable. And so, we care. We want this program to be where it's always been, and we've done a good job this year at being able to just do our thing and allowed us to come out victorious. So I'm super thankful for that. It's been an amazing year.
James, I'm glad you brought up some of the history there, right? Because I was going to ask you how aware you are of that. Obviously, you've got a coach that played at the university that you're at in Link Jarrett back in the early 90s with Florida State. He played for the legendary Mike Martin as well. And you kind of have this thing as the school has a reputation as a great baseball program, but despite those numerous College World Series appearances, hasn't been able to break through and win a national championship. Like, how much of that are you guys aware of in the moment, or is Coach Jarrett kind of giving you a little bit of a history lesson on Florida State baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all aware of it when we come here. I think it goes without saying that winning a national championship is so hard, and you got guys that have thrown, a lot of innings, and a lot of guys are tired, and so I think honestly it comes down to who's the hottest team, and so we obviously know that we haven't won it. We obviously know that there's some things left to check off in the book of Florida State baseball, but I think that there's no pressure on us. We just want to come out here and play our game, and if it happens to be that way, it'll be great. If not, I think this program is set up to where Coach Jarrett and the staff and the players that are coming in, the players that are already here, are going to transform this into a perennial powerhouse again. And that's what I hope. But I think we have the right man to do it, and I know we have the right man to do it. And I believe in him just as much as anybody. And so, regardless of if it happens this year or not, I think that we're just excited to go out there and just play our game and let everybody see what we've been doing all year.
How much of what's going on, and I get it with Cam Bam and Marco and Can too, I always say Can will, because he is kind of pretty underappreciated in this lineup. You got Jamie there as well, but how much of, like, this resurgence of this particular team has a lot more to do with, for the first time in a long time, I think you can talk a lot about pitching depth. We know you guys can rake and sweet swinging, but you have some pitching depth as well that I think has been a nice compliment to this team offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go as far as say we got a top, 5 pitcher in the country throwing on Friday nights, and so Jamie Arnold's been unbelievable, and we've had guys up and down the bullpen come up in big situations, and we've had guys, just figure themselves out. Connor Holtz is a good example. Connor Holtz didn't start the year, pitching a lot, and by the end of the year, he's been one of our guys. And so it's just a testament to everybody figuring it out and being competitive and finding ways to win. We just all want to win, and we'll do whatever it takes. And so I think it's been an amazing season. And then you got Dorsey. Dorsey just shows up, and when guys go down, he starts throwing starts and ends up being, an absolute dude for us this year. And he's been fun to watch. I mean, 8 2/3 in a regional is pretty clutch, if you ask me. So it's just been fun. Guys have stepped up all year. And it's been in the lineup. It's been off the bench. It's been out of the bullpen. It's been in the rotation. So, it's just been a true blessing to watch this team this year. It's been so much fun. Most fun I've ever had playing baseball, for sure.
You mean Arnold's almost 8-1 Ks to walks ratio is pretty good? He's got 155 punch outs with 22 walks. Like, what are we talking about? So I got to ask, I mentioned your academic prowess. I always love good student athletes. The thing that I love watching you about it with hitting, and I get it, left-handers just look better doing it, but your command of your own strike zone is pretty incredible. You got a ton of bases on balls, 50. And you make pitchers pay for when they make mistakes for where you like balls, right? You don't hit 29 home runs without being able to do that. How much of that is the plate discipline and knowing balls that you can handle versus the general strike zone?
Yeah, people have asked me this year, it's like, what changed? I'm like, well, it was nothing physical. It was just being confident in my approach. I really was okay with taking more strikes, knowing that sometimes, a couple balls or a couple pitches weren't the pitch that I was looking for in that moment. I'm looking for something over the plate, and I'm looking to do damage. And if it's not where I want it, or if it's not in the count that I want it to be in, I'm okay with taking a strike to be able to get to the next pitch. I'd rather see another pitch than get myself out on a pitch that I'm not fully committed to this year. And so that's been a huge, change for me, and understanding what pitchers do and understanding what coaches are trying to do to me, and being able to, play the cat and mouse game and try to outthink them in the moment. Obviously, sometimes I'm wrong, but sometimes I'm right, and they pay off. And so it's been tough, and it's been a year of, cat and mouse. And this weekend they're pitching me this way, and then that weekend they're pitching me a whole different way. And so I've had to really, just go with the flow and be okay with, things not always working out, be okay with being uncomfortable this year. And that's, something that I've really felt like I've done a good job at, and I've enjoyed doing it as well. And so playing in the Cape and having, last year, the way they pitched me last year, and how they're pitching me this year, it's just all helped mold me into really being confident, understanding my approach and how I'm going to be able to best, perform in that given at bat.
That is James Tibbs III from Florida State. James, we appreciate your time, and I'm not going to say this to anybody else we talk to. We hope you win this week here in Omaha. If you see some weird guy with a press credential root for Florida State that you don't recognize, that's me. So just be on the lookout, all right?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me on.
I appreciate it.
Man, it's been a blessing. So y'all have a good day, and we'll see you here in Omaha.
Sounds good. That's James Tibbs from Florida State. We will be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are now on KFOR in Lincoln as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Do have a little bit of breaking news here I want to get to. Not that kind of breaking news. It's kind of break. It does.
What other kind is there?
That music sounded a little too peppy for what I was about to say.
Still breaking
It
news.
is breaking news.
Jiminy.
That's my bad.
Shane,
That's my bad.
You're
That's
fine.
my bad. It felt a little too upbeat. NBA Hall of Famer Jerry West has passed away at the age of 86. That just came down a few minutes ago as being reported by multiple sources across the internet, including his family on that one. So the logo is no longer with us, which is he's got one of the most interesting careers in NBA history across multiple disciplines.
Yeah.
Because you start as a player, right? This all-time great player, but just gets drilled in the finals over and over and over again, finally breaks through for the one. Unprecedented in like that is an unprecedented thing in the NBA. We've never seen it before or since, right? The way his career went down as being an all-time great player. And then he has this coaching stint where he's okay, but probably not great. It was portrayed very strangely on the HBO show, his coaching tenure there, but then goes on to be maybe the best NBA executive of all time, which is super uncommon for somebody of his talent level. Like usually really good players are not that good in front office situations or coaching situations. He's a huge outlier there as well. And you could, I don't know if you could make the argument, maybe I would. He may have been a better executive than he was a player, and that's not a slight to him as a player.
Yeah, it's definitely debatable.
Like it's in the conversation at least, right?
I mean, he built dynasties.
Like he gets credit for a lot of the I believe he gets credit for the Kobe thing for them ended up going to get Kobe. He gets credit for squashing a Klay Thompson, Kevin Love trade before the Warriors started winning championships, which would have changed the face of the NBA for about another decade. The same way
spoken like a true Warrior fan.
I mean,
that's probably like 27th down the list of accomplishments. But as a Warrior fan, I get the acknowledgement.
But no, and then he built Memphis into a really from a garbage franchise to a very competitive team
with one of the more interesting windows.
Yeah, really. Like and
was
not
the door ever open? It was open for a second, right?
Maybe I don't know if it was ever open to win a championship, but it was open to things that they never thought were possible or had never been possible with their franchise before. He went from he obviously was with the Lakers, he was with the Warriors, he was with the Grizzlies, are probably his main stops. I know his last one was it the Kings?
I really only think.
Yeah,
be curious to get your thoughts on this. I only think he has one potential peer
as an exec in general, basketball history.
In general, with his journey from what he's accomplished.
Okay.
And it's going to be just a little short because this guy obviously isn't the logo. But I think he only has one real debatable potential contemporary.
Okay.
Who would you think that would be?
I'm trying.
So let me just tell you, as a player,
yeah,
he's won an NBA championship. He's a first team All-American. He's SEC Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
He has multiple championships as a head coach. He's been Exec of the Year. That's about as close as you're going to get without being the logo.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think I'm talking about? Again, NBA champion.
Okay.
A multi-time All-America. A Conference Player of the Year. He has his number retired in college. A multiple championship winning coach.
Head coach?
Yes.
Okay.
A multiple championship winning executive. A two-time Exec of the Year. Along those lines. Who am I talking about?
God, that's an incredible resume, and I'm not coming up with it.
My man, I got two right off the bat that nailed it.
Who is it?
Pat Riley.
Oh, duh. Another Laker guy.
That's about the only
and his playing,
because where most people fall short, is the playing,
and that's where Riley falls short.
I mean, Riley was pretty good.
But he was better in college than he was in the NBA.
Yeah,
his college legacy is
still. They both have one championship.
I get that.
And I'm again not in the discussion.
Yes, you could make an argument for. I mean, Riley outpaces West as a head coach.
By
a fair amount. They're probably in the neighborhood executive wise, but I give West the edge because he did it at multiple stops.
Yeah.
He's kind of got the rule thing there where he's like, hey, I'm going to go here and fix it. I'm going to go here and fix it. I'm going to go here and fix it. So I probably give him the edge there, but not by a ton because Riley did it over multiple eras.
You could make the case that Riley changed the Lakers' trajectory in terms of winning championships.
100%.
So
100%.
Is there a current exec or coach that is kind of on their way to being that way?
No.
I mean, so it's weird now because
even the good ones that were player coaches, execs like Ainge and Brad Stevens,
not even close.
It's not even close
for players, especially like for Ainge, the player not even close. The coaching is okay for Ainge, but
what do you think Jacob would say about James Jones?
Loves him, big fan. The fact is, most really good players are bad at the other part of it.
Yeah.
And
I just think it's incredible how we kind of undersell Riley a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
But
I forget about the player part.
He's the only one that could even move into probably Jerry West's neighborhood.
Yeah, he's the only one in the conversation. I mean, this is your guy too. He wasn't this as a player,
Phil Jackson,
but Phil Jackson has 2 championships as a player.
Yeah, but he still has the New York stench on him as an exec.
Does. Yeah, he does. Because he never got the exec part right.
Yeah.
He was better than either of them as a coach by a far margin.
It's just very, and no pun intended. Could you believe the air was on ABC last night? No pun intended with the rarefied air, but there are only a couple of guys with.
I love that movie, by the way.
With West kind of accolades.
Yeah, 100%. West is kind of in a class by himself as a basketball career, lengthwise, right? And I mean, just over the course of his entire lifetime, and it's. Honestly,
people forget Charlotte had the rights.
Yep.
To Kay Bizzle.
What they get for him? Vlade Divac. You think they want that one back?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But speaking of Kobe, there was. I honestly, and maybe I'm being dramatic here, but I remember thinking in the moment I was afraid that Kobe's death was going to kill Jerry West.
I know.
Like when you saw him at the funeral and you saw him on TV.
There was a definite especially the more strange that Kobe got from his mom and dad.
Yeah, Jerry West
was the guy.
Was kind of his adult mentor figure in his life.
Was the guy.
And, obviously you've got.
And who Kobe kind of gave a lot of credit to, not changing his character so much as reassessing
what it was important.
What's important, what should be important to him in life.
Yeah. And that was I honestly thought we might lose Jerry West not long after Kobe because of how hard he seemed to take that. And it's not, he was in his 80s then already. Like, it's not like he was super young, but just an incredible figure, not just in basketball, but in kind of sports. You have a few more of those guys in football where they have a really great career and then they go become like a really good coach or a really good exec, but kind of an unprecedented sports life for Jerry West. And just sort of this humble kid from West Virginia, probably not a place you would think to have one of the best basketball lives.
Shane, do you remember when we had Jeff Pearlman on in our former life and he gave us a copy of Showtime, the book? I let Michigan Lance borrow it once, and
never got it back.
No, I got it back. Big, thick. It looked kind of like the Bible, but I mean, it was a fantastic book, which is why I never really loved
the show.
The show,
yeah.
Yes, indeed.
But it shaped a lot of my opinions. It's why I feel the way I do about like Norm Nixon. Why I like Jamal Wilkes. Why, and we had him on before too. But I mean, that was the second franchise that I liked in my lifetime. It's well documented, right? Steelers, then the Lakers, then the Dodgers, then Nebraska in order. So it's like, now if for debate's sake, Carolina and Nebraska happened about the same time, 80, 81. But it was just like the Lakers were the thing. So I just remember the Sports Illustrated with Magic.
Yeah.
With the big open collars, Sparty in the smile. And I was like, oh, that's cool. He doesn't, because it's weird how, culturally, I saw a guy that for all intents and purposes, like had a haircut on the cover of a national magazine that looked like me. Like that wasn't an era in which, and it was kind of just a little tight natural. It wasn't like it wasn't like it was a brush cut or anything, right? But it's just weird what I remember gravitating towards and why I'm so animate about defending. We got into it the other day, and we didn't get into it, but I got a friend that is big Isaiah Thomas fan. And it makes my skin crawl because during that time I was all about Magic. And for some people, it's, whatever you gravitate towards. And for me, it was like, this guy's changing the landscape of something, and he's doing it with like charisma as a kid that's like 5 or 6 years old.
And he's got the chops on the basketball court to back it up.
Yeah.
There's a lot
It'd be nice if he was a better exec. I may give him some Dodger love as an owner.
Magic.
But he has, as a businessman.
Incredible businessman.
He's been incredible.
Yeah, not a great basketball exec, but he's good at the other stuff. Like everything else, really good with his money. Kind of a shining example for players. Like a lot of people look to Magic, especially recently, as kind of like, hey, I want that sort of career trajectory in terms of this is how I want to handle my money. This is how,
like your argument about taking KD over Steph.
Yeah.
Is very, very, very
Steph
similar.
Over KD.
Or taking Steph over KD.
Yeah.
Which I think is ludicrous.
That's fine.
Is kind of why I would argue and had several arguments about taking Magic over Michael. I know. But again, like
you're talking about changing the trajectory of the game.
Yeah. And who I would want to build around.
Magic is easier to build around than Michael.
Yeah.
For sure. That's fair.
Yeah, that doesn't make me right. It just makes me different.
Yeah.
Because I part of it is my affinity, but I would take Lemieux over Gretzky, and most people would think that's laughable.
I think making the argument that Magic's easier to build around than Michael is an easy argument to make. I don't think that, for me, I wouldn't then take him over Michael, but I get what you're saying. Like, Michael's hard to build around, especially in that era of the NBA where that wasn't really how teams were built, or there was no blueprint for it. Like, now you can be like, okay, I've got an ISO 2-guard scorer, does this, blah, blah, blah. We can figure it out from there because okay, it's like, hey, we got to spread the floor for him.
Did you see Shaq's starting five that he said nobody could ever beat?
At one point I did. I don't remember who was on it.
I'll give you 8 guesses to get the 5 guys.
Magic?
No.
Okay. Let me go.
Do you want me to count that?
No, I just assumed you were doing Magic because we were talking about Magic.
I'll give you 8 guesses for the 5 guys. Team that he said nobody would ever beat.
Give me Larry.
No.
Really?
Nope.
Give me Duncan.
No.
He's got terrible taste. Give me.
Although when you hear the team, you're gonna be like,
Steph.
No.
Correct.
Okay. Give me. Did he do positionally pretty true? Okay. I assume he's on the team.
Correct.
Okay. So we got Shaq and Steph.
That's 4.
Give me KD.
Correct.
Did he have KD as the 3 or the 4? Can you tell me?
KD was the 4.
Okay. Give me LeBron.
Correct. You're now making a little bit of a run.
Okay.
You have 3 to get 2.
I got 3 to get 1.
3 to get 1. Correct.
3 to get 1. Okay, so I'm looking for a 2-guard. I'm guessing.
You actually have 2 to get 1.
Yeah, 2 to get 1. I'm looking for a. Did he put Steph as the point or the 2?
Steph is the point.
Okay, so I'm looking for a 2-guard.
This one's easy if you think about it.
I mean, is it MJ?
It is not.
Oh, this one's easy if I think about it.
Who's the Shaq guy? It's grown legs that he wasn't, but who's the Shaq guy?
It's grown legs that he wasn't, or it used to have legs that he wasn't. And
it used to have legs that he wasn't.
So it's Kobe.
Correct.
Okay.
Steph, Kobe, LeBron, KD, Shaq.
I'm not going to argue a lot. I mean, that's a team that's not losing to. I mean, So for argument's sake, let's try and put a team together that could beat that team.
I'm going with Larry.
Gotta go Larry and Magic.
So I want to go matchups, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put Magic at the point. So it'll be him and Steph.
So who can guard Shaq?
I'm going with Hakeem Olajuwon.
Ooh, I love Hakeem.
So I'm going Hakeem because I need shooters, which is so I need. So
Hakeem. If you're gonna go Hakeem, then you can't go Duncan.
I'm not
because
I'm not.
That's fine.
I'm going to. I got to be able to defend KD.
Right. So that's my thought was you could either do Hakeem's a great one.
I'm going to give it to you,
or you could do Duncan at the 5 because Duncan did a really good job on Shaq.
He did.
That's the and Shaq really struggled defending Duncan.
And listen, I get it. So that's open for debate. But I'm taking Hakeem because I just remember when they went head to head. And I get it. Shaq was young,
but Hakeem is criminally underrated.
Yeah,
he's one of the best players of all time.
Yeah, in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So I'm taking Hakeem, Magic.
Yep.
Jordan,
Larry.
Yep. And probably.
Who can guard KD? That's the $1 million question.
I think I'm going with one of my favorites.
Okay. What era?
Well, he played for 2 teams.
Okay.
He's always on a podcast running his mouth. I went to go see him play my favorite team, which was the Lakers in the playoffs. Correct.
Oh.
I'd probably take Garnett.
KG's an interesting matchup for KD. Because we didn't see KG on the perimeter as much, but he could have.
Yeah, he's really good.
I would say, but I think that was an era issue, right? Yeah. Where had he been this era, he'd have defended on the perimeter way more. Yeah. Also probably helps with the rim protection with Hakeem.
I don't know if they would shoot it well enough.
So that's the question.
But gosh, they could score though.
You got Larry that helps you shoot it. That's about it. For shooters, that's tough.
I don't know.
I mean, Jordan will get you your mid-range, right? But as far as 3-point shooters to kind of keep that thing unclogged a little bit, I generally gravitate.
I just don't know if you could match if you're going to take KD and Steph.
Yeah, you're not matching shooting.
So here's the other thing that I thought about.
Yeah.
But I think he would get torched defensively. Mm-hmm. It would just be scoring. Mm-hmm. I'm not so sure KD could guard Dirk either. I wanted to take Nowitzki.
Ooh, I love Dirk.
I think he's sensational.
I love Dirk. So here's the thing: is if you go with a Duncan at the 5, then you can maybe play around with the lineup a little bit because Duncan can pull Shaq away a little bit from the basket.
How about if they try to use drop coverage? We would get so many buckets between 12 and 18 feet. It would be criminal.
Yeah, so they can't run drop coverage, but then you're pulling, if you're running pick and roll with Magic and...
How about Dirk with pick and pop?
Yeah, if you switch to Dirk at the 4 and running Dirk and Magic, pick and pop, then you've got Shaq, or you've got KD all the way out from the basket.
Yeah.
Or what if you're running pick and roll with Hakeem and Magic?
Who had great mid-range game.
Incredible mid-range game for Hakeem.
I like my team, and we're big too.
Positionally, yeah. Hakeem's not a huge center.
No.
But positionally, you're big.
Yeah, we're big.
If you've got Dirk, that makes me feel better about the shooting. You go Dirk and Larry, that gets you some shooting.
Gets us a lot.
Gets you a lot of shooting.
Dirk,
then Jordan
for like 7 or 8 years.
Oh, don't tell me I forget about Dirk. I don't forget anything.
You couldn't guard him.
I don't forget anything.
You just has to hope he shot bad shots. He made wrong footing.
Yeah,
an art form.
I literally went through a few years just tearing up the YMCA pickup ball because I just learned how to do the Dirk fadeaway. I swear to God.
At like 5'4", I don't think it has the same effect.
It really does because nobody knows it's coming. It's not like I'm playing against 7-footers.
I get it.
I'm playing with a bunch of other 5'9" dudes.
I get it.
And I'm going to have Jake call in. He witnessed this. He knows. He literally, I just spent like a whole summer just learning how to goofy foot that fadeaway.
Yeah.
It is unguardable in pickup ball.
He was incredible.
He was, man, don't get me started on Dirk. I love me some Dirk.
He was incredible. But I got to go back to something that I want to talk about because, so the only reason I thought about this is because we got a message earlier that, did I believe Coach Coop when nice no transition, no segue,
That's fine.
But with only 3 minutes and some change.
Rest in peace to Jerry West. Anyway, go ahead.
Where would I put Gifford in the
hierarchy
of just the conference?
Yeah, Big
Not
Ten.
even whether.
And we're just talking.
We're believing
not.
Coop said he was one of the best. He could be is one of the best defensive players in the country.
Yeah.
So in my head, I just compiled this list. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, agree to disagree, like how we feel. I think let's just stay in the Big Ten conference.
Okay.
This is if I don't use Gifford. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to put Caleb Downs at 1.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Starks, I'm just going to do conference safeties, but like the top 9 or 10 safeties in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Starks has got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Downs and Starks, Malachi Starks from Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Xavier Watts is
way up there
in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like Thieneman
mm-hmm.
at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
Who, by the way,
I think you I think you'd like him more than most people do. Not that he's bad, but I think
he's really, really good.
Yeah. I just think you're higher on him than most. That's all.
You got Winston at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Wongpa at Iowa.
Mm-hmm. You're missing a couple big ones.
You got Wooler at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. You've got Moore at Michigan.
Oh yeah, Rodney Moore.
You've got Ransom at Ohio State.
I like Ransom. Let me, because I'm just kind of eyeballing this, right?
And who am I missing?
Did you say the Penn State guy yet?
Yeah, Winston Jr.
Yep.
So and that's just in the Big Ten. And Sand Starks. Is Gifford Wooler?
Maybe a little better.
Could be.
Maybe a little better than Wooler.
Wooler's probably is more proven though.
Yeah, sure. I would maybe take Gifford over Wooler.
I mean, biasly, if I was being biased, I would too.
Yeah, but I mean, just if I'm not trying to consider what we know about Gifford, since we don't have that information on Wooler, I think that's probably the closest comparison.
So you could make the case that 5 or 6 of the 7 top safeties in the country are in the Big Ten.
I think you can make that argument. I think you can definitely make the argument like 7 of the top 10.
And
sure.
2 or 3 of the top corners are in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And it just depending on how you feel about Castro at Iowa.
Yep.
Obviously, Will Johnson may be the best. And you got Muhammad at Oregon.
It is tough sledding.
It's a really good conference for secondary.
Yeah, it's a really good defensive backs conference. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Jessica Brabec of the Pinnacle Bank Championship coming up here in August. That's next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, also KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And we are joined now by Jessica Brabec of the Pinnacle Bank Championship. Jessica, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing this morning?
Good. You got to be hanging in there, right? Do you feel ahead of the game, or are you kind of just like, it's like a duck? I may seem cool, but I'm paddling like crazy under this water.
Can I say a little bit of both? Is that an option?
So what's this? I know we're just under a couple months away from the championship. Yeah. What does this time of year look like for you? I mean, I'm sure you're kind of a little hectic, like DB said, but what's going on in terms of getting everything ready for the championship to come to Omaha?
Sure. I think a lot of people don't realize that playing for our event and trying to really get 50,000 people out at the club at Indian Creek, that we've been working year round. Mm-hmm. So we're continuing to sell Pro-Am foursomes and hospitality packages to the Pinnacle Bank Championship presented by Woodhouse, and recruit our volunteers. So we need 600 volunteers to help us actually execute the event. So those are a couple things that we're working on, and as well as, it's College World Series time, and the city is so excited for sports. So we're taking advantage of that and working on getting our advertising and everything out.
So I always want to know, just because of the course has to be functional when it's not just hosting the event. What do you do with the grounds in the meantime while you're trying to prepare it to be challenging, yet you still know you have everyday golfers that are out there playing before the event gets kicked? You have to hear what I would quote unquote feedback, right, on the course.
Correct. Yeah, we do. We do. And I would tell you that if you want to go out and book a tee time, the farther away you are from the course or from the tournament, the better, because the rough's just going to get longer and it's just going to get a little more difficult. So, the Corn Ferry Tour actually sends an agronomist to meet with Jim Nedrow and his team, who do a fantastic job.
He's amazing. I'm a huge fan. Huge.
Yeah. We'll have to have a time so you guys can do an interview with him next. I'm sure you'd enjoy that a little bit more.
Yeah, he's great. We got to talk food too.
Oh yeah, exactly. But so they actually are, working on that. They're seeing how the course, wakes up, and Jim will talk to you about too, with our event being in August, just keeping it looking great, making sure. We've been lucky, we've been getting a lot of rain, but what happens if we don't get rain, and if it's too hot, and how we're going to handle that.
So you start on the 5th, you've got your Sandhills, you got your Pro-Am, which is kind of close to the public, and then the 6th gets started with your rounds for the players. So walk me through the Pro-Am a little bit and what a cool little event that is.
Sure. I think a lot of people don't realize that we do have opportunities if you want to come out and play with a Corn Ferry Tour professional. So Gary and Brett on our team do a great job meeting with individuals that want to play on Monday in our Sandhills Global Pro-Am, or if they want to play Wednesday in our Dormy Network Pro-Am. And we have a couple of differences. On Wednesday, you get to actually play with 2 pros, so what's called a 9-and-9 format. So you play with one Corn Ferry Tour professional on the front 9, and then a different on the back 9. But both days we provide gifting and food and beverage for you and your guests. So there are 4 amateurs or people like us that would be out there golfing with the professional golfer.
We're talking with Jessica Brabec of the Pinnacle Bank Championship. Obviously, a ton goes on during that week besides the actual golf. I know that the Hurrdat Sports team will be out there all week as well. What are some of your favorite things that happen? I know you don't get to enjoy that week quite as much as some of us do. What are some of your favorite things that happen around during that tournament week?
My coworker and I were actually just chatting yesterday that we don't really see a bunch of golf, and usually I know who is leading based off of the people that I talk to. But I always just enjoy seeing everyone and the excitement and the energy that the community brings. We couldn't be more lucky to have great partners with Pinnacle Bank and Woodhouse, and also just seeing that we, at the end of the day, benefit children's charities and our volunteers. So it's kind of like a big family reunion.
One of the cool things behind the scenes I like to tell people about is you guys are super competitive. You want to make it the best that it can be in Omaha, whether it's where volunteers sign up, the ease in which people can park. Like you're always tinkering with the logistics to make the fan and patron experience better. Do you have any newbies this year that you learned from last year? Did you kind of like the flow from a year ago?
Sure. So you're going to notice the majority of our structures are going to be in the same area out on the golf course. I think, working with the grounds crew and with the tour staff, we have a great location for our build. Our double decker that we've had on the 18th green is now becoming one level. So that will improve some viewing, going to provide some easier access for individuals that are out there. And then we are, again, going to have our KPMG fan zone on our 9th green, and they are providing bag chairs. So if you get there early enough each day, Thursday through Sunday, you can take a chair home with you.
Okay.
So that's something that's kind of fun.
I got to ask, I think my favorite feature last year, I believe there were some boozy snow cones. Will we see the return
How about
of
the day it was
boozy
like
snow
101
Yes.
out there, and that thing almost sold. They're like, you guys
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
come
I
back.
almost just bought out the whole cart. I'd be like, this is mine now.
I got you covered. Yes, they're going to be there.
That's the
So we
most,
actually
that's the
are
most
going out
important
there.
thing.
Yes, exactly. Trust me, I'm quite aware. We just walked in the Elkhorn Days Parade, and so I was advertising also. I'm like, Saturday is our RSM Youth Day. Bring the kiddos out. They can have a complimentary snowball, but then you got some boozy ones too.
That's what I'm talking about. I know this is a cool event, not just for golf enthusiasts, but as you know, as boozy snow cone enthusiasts like myself, it's a super cool place for people that just want to be part of a big event in Omaha. How did you guys kind of start to build that out to make it something that was accessible, not just for people that love golf, but just love the city and love being part of the supporting the things that come here?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking. Omaha is great. I'm originally from Northeast Nebraska. So, this is city life to me, even though I've lived here for a couple of decades now. But it's so cool to see all the events that are going on within the community and that there's a little bit of something for everyone. And so I think that's kind of what we try to emulate at the Pinnacle Bank Championship presented by Woodhouse, is to try and make sure that, hey, maybe you go out and you're not that much of a golf fan, but you can appreciate the people watching or being outside with your friends and just enjoying the day off of work or leaving your kids at daycare, coming out as a family. But then we do also have 2 concerts on Friday and Saturday evening with Barnado. So we're going to have a country lineup on Friday evening and then an alternative rock for the first time on Saturday.
There we go.
Versatility.
I like it. Something for everybody. Jessica, we appreciate your time, and I'm sure we will chat again at least a couple times between now and mid-August when this thing gets kicked off.
That sounds great. I look forward to seeing you guys August 5th through the 11th.
I appreciate you, Jessica.
That's Jessica Brabec. She's with the Pinnacle Bank Championship. If you can't wait that long, you want to be a part of another big event here in Omaha. It's always a big event to get out to Union Omaha and get out to their matches. They've got Spokane coming to town tomorrow. Well, maybe they're already in town. I don't know, but they're playing them tomorrow at Werner Park, 7 p.m. Make sure you get out there. It's Pride Night plus Thrifty Thursday, and following the match, they will have Special Olympics Unified Series match directly following that game as well. Make sure you get out there and support not only Union Omaha, but also a great cause like the Special Olympics as well. All that can be found at unionomaha.com. Coming up next, we will wrap up the show here on a Wednesday. Can't believe it's Wednesday already, DB.
Yeah, I blinked.
We're flying by. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on KFOR in Lincoln, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And DB, getting a little snarky with me a little bit during the break.
What are you talking about? What did I do?
He goes, oh, hey, your guy Amari Cooper is trying to get paid too. He's on the last like that deal. I go, why is he my guy, Amari Cooper? He's like, you love that quarterback playing Cleveland.
You do love it,
which is not accurate.
You were like, I am so glad Deshaun Watson is throwing again.
Stop it,
because I think he's going to be spectacular.
Stop it. That's not true. None of that's true.
A little bit.
What is true is not even a little bit.
Why wouldn't you love Amari? I mean, isn't he everybody's guy?
He's a former Raiders guy.
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking.
Thank you.
I like it when
you did get your 2 great questions in for the year. You should probably go. I would retire now if I were you. Coach Rule said it, and Jessica did. That might be all she got for you.
What did Coach Rule say, Shane? I don't remember. Could you?
I'm 98.4% sure you're well aware of the exact.
I just play it on loop as I go to bed every night. Just good job, Rob.
Blind squirrel.
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking.
Just blind squirrel stacking nuts.
Hey, that's fine. Listen, I'll take it.
Bro, I got 2 in 1 interview. Okay. That was just yesterday. I mean, come on. I just don't understand how you're going to pay out. I'm going to keep asking.
Yeah.
And it's twofold. Number one, the Steelers are going to be in play for somebody at the wide receiver spot.
You hope so.
Number two, or 1A, because
leave Brandon Ayuk alone. Leave him alone.
San Francisco's going to be in a similar spot.
Not yet. You ain't got to pay Purdy yet.
You got to do something with those wide receiver groups.
Just play them. Let it be fine.
You're probably okay this
year.
This
year, you're fine.
Okay.
This year, you're fine.
Stay in the moment then.
Leave Brandon Ayuk and Debo alone.
I don't want.
Leave him alone.
I mean, I don't want. Who am I? Right? But sure, would I take Brandon Ayuk? Yeah, I would. But you got Cortland Sutton. You got T. Higgins. You got CeeDee Lamb. You have Amari Cooper. Ayuk's coming up.
Ayuk.
Waddle got his money a year earlier than some of these guys. That's what I said. CeeDee Lamb.
You just Jamar, isn't Jamar Chase coming up?
Oh yeah. Well, he's not going anywhere.
No, but he's gonna get Justin Jefferson money.
Although I still think the Bengals. How many months have I been saying this? I was very worried about the Bengals falling off tremendously. It started with the Mixon and T. Higgins thing. I think defensively, especially up front, we'll see what happens with them. I mean, you draft a couple D tackles, so you may have to go young. But
so here's my question:
I do worry about Burrow's health.
And you've been saying that for a minute.
I know, and so does he.
Yeah, he
everybody's just
football mortality yesterday.
Even everybody just pencils the Steelers in last place, and I get it because of the talent on the other three rosters. But man, we're making a lot of assumptions about Cincinnati.
Let me ask you a question about wide receivers.
And it wasn't too long. You guys were bad mouthing their head coach. He's just fortunate that he was a Nebraska guy.
We love Nebraska guys. Joe Burrow could have played for Nebraska. I don't know if you knew that he wanted to come here.
You're an idiot.
Twice actually, but it said no.
I heard that once.
I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that rumor out there.
Yeah.
The rumor I like more is that he could have played basketball for Creighton, which is also true.
Okay.
If he had chosen a different route,
Why didn't he just play for the golf team? I mean,
I'm sure he just could have fast forward to the Korn Ferry Tour and then en route to PGA.
He's probably a good golfer, I'd guess.
Like Zhang. Have you seen that guy bomb it?
Yeah.
God.
Can I ask my question about wide receivers? Or
you can do whatever you want.
Apparently not. We don't have to.
It's kind of average.
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking.
I'm glad somebody appreciates what I do around here. It's only
your wife. That's all you need.
It's only our guests, but that's okay. My co-host just stares daggers at me.
You want me to make more faces?
No. So I understand that most of these guys are going to get paid, right?
You think?
I think so. I don't know that the wide receiver bubble has burst yet, but I do feel like the wide receiver bubble is going to burst.
You got to assume the salary cap goes up again next year with the streaming and TV money.
Yes.
It went up exponentially this year.
So my question is, though, as I keep seeing these guys, right? Justin Jefferson, I get. Jamar Chase, I get. There's some of the guys that make sense to me, right? Am I trying to pay Brandon Ayuk Justin Jefferson money?
No,
or
not
even
yet.
Like 80% of Justin Jefferson money?
Well, you haven't even got 80% of the production.
I know, but
you'd be playing the long game with him.
Would you be surprised if Brandon Ayuk gets 80% of Justin Jefferson money?
Yes.
You'd be surprised if he does?
Yes.
From the 49ers or at all?
Somebody will pay it.
That's what I mean. Somebody's going to pay him at least 80% of Justin Jefferson money. May not be the Niners.
Somebody will.
But somebody's paying that
bill. And there are
bill.
some teams in the wide receiving market you've got to probably take a look at that have cap space.
So these guys are going to keep getting paid for a minute.
I mean, are you comfortable in Los Angeles with the Chargers?
What do you mean? Am I comfortable?
Their wide receiving core, yeah.
I mean, Puka's nice.
Chargers.
Oh, Chargers. Sorry.
Yeah.
I hear Los Angeles, and I'm always going to think Rams.
I'm fine. I'm just glad I said it right. I mean, baby steps for your boy, okay? It's not fast forward to your problems.
Just think Raiders.
I just cleared one of my own.
Literally nobody's ever thinking Raiders, Shane.
What the?
No, I don't feel good about that.
I mean, they've got to go get a guy, don't they?
I would think so.
Amari Cooper in Los Angeles wouldn't surprise me.
That wouldn't be terrible.
I just don't think the Browns want to pay him.
So my question,
they inherited that bad Dallas
with the receivers
contract.
Is, should anyone want to pay these guys what they're getting paid?
I think you have to.
But I'm talking about the B tier guys, right? You're going to pay Jamar Chase, but what are you going to pay T. Higgins what you're paying Jamar Chase? Or what you're going to have to pay Jamar Chase? Because that's what T. Higgins is going to ask for. Are you going to pay Amari Cooper?
But yes and no. I get what T. Higgins may ask for, but he would have to go to a team where he would have to be somebody else's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, he's not a number one.
But the cost of then keeping that guy becomes the number one price if you're the Bengals, if you want to keep him.
Can't do it.
No, you don't. You can't think like that. You have your number one receiver.
I understand that. But if you sit there and say, hey, we need to keep Higgins.
Even the Dolphins are going to have to figure. You have a couple of guys with number one money.
That's what I mean, though. They're the
very few teams can do that.
I understand that. That's why I'm saying these choices are going to have to start being made. But as long as there are teams out there that are like, yeah, we're going to pay a number two, number one money.
But I just said he'd have to go somewhere and be a number. He'd have to be your number one. He's not going to get that money in Cincinnati. He's not.
I don't know if he's not going to get that money in Cincinnati. They aren't going to offer to him first.
He's
for
not.
Sure.
I mean, you know who could send him to Buffalo?
Yeah, they need some wide receivers.
They need
at least a.
You do.
You're right. I'm not arguing with you. My question, though, with the wide receivers,
I mean, are you going? You're going to go with Khalil Shakir as your one?
Here's my question.
Keon Coleman.
I love Keon.
You're right, but
he's like a 2 or 3 right now.
This is peak Josh Allen.
Yeah, you got to maximize.
And you've got Shakir. You've got Keon Coleman.
You got to maximize the window.
I don't know what you call Curtis Samuel.
He's not.
What do you call Curtis Samuel?
Not good enough.
He may be okay working out of the slot.
He might be okay, but for what we're talking about, it's not good enough for that. My question, because most guys, I mean, you've only got one Mahomes in the league that can take a poo-poo platter and be like, hey, let's go win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exist anywhere else.
And that's who everybody's catching. He's clearly the best player and the X factor.
100%.
You're chasing Patrick Mahomes.
He's currently Brady. You rewind 15, 20 years, he's Brady, right? You can throw out, Jabbar Gaffney and be like, yeah, we'll win a Super Bowl. It's fine. And it probably will be fine. But none of these other teams can do that. My question is, though,
the Packers have cap space.
Would you be better off spending?
You got Dobbs and Reed.
Would you be better off spending high-end running back money? Would you get more bang for your buck? Would you rather sign T. Higgins for what's called 4 years, $80 million?
Or go get a $12 million running back?
Or get an awesome running back for $12 million?
I don't think so. No, gosh, that's
because this is where I was starting to get with Cynthia when we talked to her on Monday.
Would I?
Where is the tipping point in the market?
He would. So, but this is where analytics get into it, though, because GMs and execs don't want to really pay top end money for a roster spot at the running back spot.
I get it.
Because their wins above replacement isn't great.
I get that.
Like, it seems to have a threshold of what you can pay a back,
but
still win.
And that's what the analytics tell you. But what does the football tell you? Are you better off overpaying a wide receiver that's a number 2, or
I definitely don't I definitely don't want to overpay a 2. I don't.
And that's what a lot of these people are going to end up doing. That's what a lot of these people are doing.
Well, Gabe Davis signed 2 months ago. That's incredible. The guy can barely catch.
That's what I mean.
So I know I understand. I clearly understand the question. I just wouldn't do it.
Like, if there's a 26-year-old running back out there that somebody doesn't want to give a second contract to,
teams won't do it.
I know they won't do it, but should they? That's the question. It's not will or won't. Is if you're a team and you're like, hey, I can get a 26-year-old running back. I probably got 3 years left in that guy. Is he worth $12 million more than, or is he worth $12 million more than a number 2 wide receiver is worth $20 to $24 million? I'm paying double for a guy for a number 2.
Maybe in Los Angeles where you have like Palmer, Quentin Johnson, and McConkey.
I'm just saying.
T. Higgins would look really good there.
We might be seeing sometime soon the comeback of the running back. I'd love to see it. That's
that'd be nice.
I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow.